ODB Audits, the inside scoop from an ODB auditor. MK Law took questions from pharmacists and sat down with an ODB auditor and asked him to give us the inside scoop, and he did. You want to know more? Keep watching. Can an ODB inspector come to your pharmacy at any time for a spot audit or a regular audit? Yes. An ODB inspector can definitely come at any time to your pharmacy to conduct an in-person spot audit. Why is the inspector here? Did something trigger the audit? Are there factors that trigger an ODB audit? The answer is yes. Trigger 1, ODB software. Yes, ODB does have a software that looks for outliers. What are outliers? They are things that don't add up for ODB. For example, large proportion of sales coming from one specific expensive drug, too many early refills, too many claims for deceased patients, too many pack size errors, etc. When the software detects a disproportionate number of anomalies, it can trigger a claims review, which can then trigger an audit. Another trigger, a complaint from the ODB help desk itself. Let me tell you a story that happened a little over 10 years ago when pharmacists had to physically keep ODB cards at the pharmacy. There was this pharmacy that didn't bother keeping the physical ODB cards in the pharmacy, and they were also conducting some fraud. The patient came in for a refill, but it wasn't going through. So a staff member at the pharmacy called the ODB help desk to find out why. The ODB help desk looked into it and found out that this patient has not been covered for 2 years, yet the pharmacy has been billing for this patient for over 2 years. The ODB help desk then contacted the ODB inspection department, who in turn went to the pharmacy for an ODB inspection and detected the fraud that was taking place. The pharmacy did end up losing its ODB privileges and did shut down. Another trigger can be a complaint from a private third-party payer, the Ontario College of Pharmacists, OCP, a doctor, a patient, or an anonymous tip. Another trigger, the sale of a pharmacy. A sale of a pharmacy usually triggers a claims review. ODB conducts a behind-the-scenes audit to make sure everything adds up before the pharmacy is sold. If you want to sell your pharmacy, you must first make sure that all your ducks are in order with ODB, because there will most likely be an ODB audit even if it is behind the scenes. What are the different possible outcomes of an ODB audit? What would justify loss of billing privileges versus a clawback? Possible outcomes of an audit: nothing, case closed, close the ticket, no further action. Warning from ODB, depends on the error. Recovery of funds, the clawback. Termination of the ODB agreement, loss of billing privileges, then referral to OCP, referral sometimes to the police. Termination of the ODB agreement and loss of billing privileges usually only happens if the pharmacy submits more claims than can be justified by their purchases. In that case, the auditor refers their findings to their manager along with the store's explanations. Then it goes to the legal team at ODB to make a final decision. The store's explanation is very important in this case, so it's important to defend yourselves. What are the different types of ODB audits? Desk audit, in-person, virtual, announced versus unannounced. The first step in ODB audits is usually a claims review. Most claims reviews are done behind the scenes without the pharmacy even knowing it is happening. A claims review may include comparing what a pharmacy billed to ODB versus what the pharmacy purchased from wholesalers, among other things. When a claims review warrants further investigation, then an audit takes place. Most audits are done in person, but some audits can be done remotely by phone, email, or fax. The auditor requests the information about specific prescriptions from the pharmacy at the discretion of the ODB auditor and inspector. The remote virtual audits are usually reserved for cases such when the audit is too small or for the pharmacies in remote areas. Most auditors prefer in-person audits because it gives them a good sense of how the pharmacy operates. Most in-person audits are unannounced surprise audits. A return audit, re-audit, is usually announced or scheduled. If someone loses their ODB billing privileges, are they blacklisted at ODB forever? Will they be able to obtain an ODB number again? Generally speaking, under the new ODB policy and the new HNS agreement, someone who loses their ODB billing privileges will be blacklisted, will likely not be able to obtain an ODB number again. This impacts officers, directors, shareholders, designated managers of a pharmacy that loses the ODB billing privileges. However, you may be able to appeal this in the future. Now, is there an ODB blacklist? Yes, there is. ODB does keep a list of all the names of the pharmacists who are blacklisted with ODB, and you can find this list online. I'll tell you a story. There was a pharmacy in a remote location that had several partners. One of the partners was committing fraud at that pharmacy. The other partners had no knowledge of this fraud. He got audited by ODB and lost the privileges of ODB and was blacklisted. All of the shareholders of that pharmacy got blacklisted, even the shareholders who had no knowledge of the fraud that was being conducted by their shareholder, by their partner, and all of their pharmacies got audited by ODB. So make sure you know what your existing partners are doing at the pharmacies, and also for any future partnerships, please make sure who you're partnering up with and make sure that that person is not on the blacklist, because if you do partner up with somebody on the blacklist with ODB, you may have great difficulty getting ODB numbers and privileges. Do ODB auditors have a quota or a target to hit in terms of clawbacks? And do they get compensated based on amount of clawback? No. ODB inspectors don't have a target in terms of dollar value of clawbacks. They don't get a financial incentive, a financial compensation based on the amount of clawbacks, but like many other employees, they do have a target or quota in terms of the number of claim reviews and audits to conduct. Do ODB auditors have access to all the pharmacy purchase data from the main wholesalers, McKesson, KNF, etc.? ODB auditors do not have immediate visibility to pharmacy purchase data, but this data is easily requested and obtained from wholesalers. When an ODB auditor looks at drugs purchased versus drugs dispensed, are they only looking at ODB sales, or are they also looking at other private third-party cash sales to ensure the pharmacy purchased enough to cover all the meds dispensed? And given that any pharmacy will always have existing inventory of most drugs, and they may not necessarily purchase the exact amount dispensed to replenish, so there may be small discrepancies. Is there an acceptable discrepancy amount between purchases and sales for each item? ODB auditors usually look at ODB sales data, but when fraud is suspected, they can also look at cash and third-party sales. There is no specific acceptable level of discrepancy, but it is at the discretion of the auditor. As long as there is a valid and reasonable explanation, auditors will usually take that into consideration. What happens behind the scenes at ODB when a pharmacy is being sold? Does it matter if it's a share sale or an asset sale? A sale of a pharmacy, either as shares or assets, whereby a new provider number is sought, will trigger an ODB claims review. An auditor will review the claims behind the scenes. If everything checks out fine, the case will be closed, the new provider number will be issued. If discrepancies are noted or the auditor has concerns with the claims review, then a deeper audit may be conducted prior to issuance of a new ODB number. And so if you are selling a pharmacy, whether it's an asset sale or a share sale, please make sure that all your ducks are in order with ODB, because you will most likely get audited by ODB, whether it's a claims review behind the scenes or an in-person audit. After the sale of a pharmacy, if ODB conducts an audit and there's a clawback for the time period before the pharmacy was sold, will ODB collect the money from the new owner or the previous owner? Does it matter whether it's an asset sale or a share sale? According to the HNS agreement, new owners, either buying assets or shares, are assuming the liability of the previous owner. If there's a clawback for the time period pertaining to the previous owner, the onus is on the new owner to go after the old owner, but he's still liable. Although the previous owner remains liable to ODB as per the HNS agreement, ODB usually recovers the funds from the new owner. The HNS agreement is the agreement that your pharmacy signs with ODB when you are requesting and obtaining ODB privileges and ODB number. It governs your duties and obligations towards ODB. According to Section 11 of the HNS agreement, both the seller of the pharmacy and the new owner of the pharmacy are both liable for any amounts owing to ODB for a period of time prior to the sale. Disclaimer, many of the decisions and courses of actions in an audit are subject to the discretion of the ODB auditor, so the same situation may be handled differently by two different auditors. This presentation covers certain but not all aspects of the ODB audit and does not serve as legal advice. For personalized legal advice, please consult your lawyer.